The theme of this time of year is survive and advance, and Texas did just that last night against Colorado State. They survived and advanced to the round of 32.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Longhorns, the show. Jonathan Davis, your host. Today's episode of Locked On Longhorns is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. And on today's shorter episode of Locked On Longhorns, we are discussing the Texas men's basketball victory over Colorado State last night. They survived and advanced to the round of 32, where Rick Barnes and the Tennessee Volunteers await. All of that and more on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Once again, it's March Madness. Anything can happen. We have now seen Kentucky, for the second consecutive time that they've been in the tournament, lose in the first round, right? So that just tells you that anything can happen. And I'm pretty sure I had Kentucky going all the way to the championship game in my bracket, but that's my fault because one and dones don't win in college anymore. And John Calipari is just cooked at Kentucky now, but it just shows that anything can happen, this time of year for sure. I think I was watching Dayton, Nevada yesterday, and Nevada had an 11-point lead with like 4 minutes left, and Dayton came back and won by 3. So anything can happen at this time of year. What matters the most, the utmost, is that you have the most points at the end of the game on the scoreboard when the buzzer sounds, and that's what Texas had over Colorado State last night, 56-44, even though it was an ugly win. Every team in the field of 64 is just trying to find a way to win 6 games, right? They're just trying to find a way to win 6 games and cut down the nets, and you care more about getting the victory, surviving, and advancing than how the victory looked, even though, once again, that was an ugly game for the Texas Longhorns last night. And now, tomorrow, they will face off against Rick Barnes and the Tennessee Volunteers. I'm pretty sure the time has not been announced yet at this point. But last year, the committee tried to get their juicy matchup with the Longhorns in the second round because they put Texas and Texas A&M right next to each other in the bracket. But Texas A&M lost to Penn State in the first round. So the committee didn't get what they wanted, right? This year, they put Texas and Tennessee next to each other in the bracket so that they could get the, Rick Barnes, Texas, Rodney Terry storyline, his top assistant for over a decade, in the second round. And Texas beat Colorado State, and I was praying that St. Peter's found that magic again and found a way to beat Tennessee so we wouldn't have to play them tomorrow. But the Tennessee Volunteers beat St. Peter's by 34 points, right? So the committee gets their juicy storyline this time around in the second round, and it should be absolute cinema tomorrow when these teams face off against each other, right? Not to mention the underlying storyline of who's the real UT, right? So there's just a lot going on here, and it's going to play out in March Madness in the NCAA tournament. With last night's win, this is only the 20th time in program history that the Longhorns have advanced to the second round of the NCAA tournament. And the tournament started in 1939, right? So since 1939, Texas has only won a game in the tournament 20 times, right? With 3 of those coming in 3 consecutive years, right? The last 3 years under Chris Beard and Rodney Terry, and 13 of them coming since 2000. So that just shows you how scarce the success is in the Texas basketball program since 1939, right? And how most of the success in this basketball program and in the tournament came from Rick Barnes solely, right? This is only the 6th time in program history, or since 1939. The program was around before that, but that's when the tournament started, that Texas has won a game in 3 straight tournaments. Since 1939, this is only the 6th time that we've won one game, right, in 3 straight tournaments. And Rodney Terry is now 3rd all time at the University of Texas in NCAA tournament wins, with 4 behind Rick Barnes and Tom Penders. No context needed. That is an absolute fact that Rodney Terry is 3rd all time in University of Texas NCAA tournament wins, and he's only coached in 5 of them total. Right? He's only lost in the Elite 8 at the University of Texas as the head coach in the NCAA tournament. No context needed. These are just the facts, right? When you look at what happened last night on the court, this was the second time this year that Texas was able to hold a team under 45 points. Colorado State scored 44, and the 12th time that Texas held a team under 40% shooting, and they were undefeated in those games. When you look at the flow of the game, Colorado State jumped out to an 8-2 lead. And I think all Texas fans were like, here we go again, right? Because there were so many times this year where our opponent jumped out to an 8 to 10 to 14 point lead, like right out the gate. And then it just felt like Texas was chasing them for the rest of the game. But, Rodney Terry called a timely timeout, after they went up 8-2. And after that, Texas went on a run, Colorado State didn't score for like 10 minutes, and then Texas never relinquished the lead after that. So after Colorado State jumped out to an 8-2 lead, Texas outscored them 54-36 for the remainder of the game to advance to the next round. Texas would hold Colorado State to just 3 points after they jumped out to that 8-2 lead, would hold them to just 3 points the last 15 minutes of the first half. And then, of course, 11 first half points overall, right? We were making fun of Virginia, talking about them only scoring 14 against Colorado State. And then Colorado State came back and one up them and only scored 11 in the first half. The Longhorns had a 16-point lead at halftime thanks to a 35-foot buzzer beater from Max Asmus, the only three that the Longhorns made in the game, by the way. But it got cut to as many as 6 when Colorado State started making some threes in the second half and started to get hot. But ultimately, the Rams could never get it, back above 6, or get anything closer than 6. And, Texas never relinquished the lead once again, right? So, yeah, they were up 6. Then Texas stormed back, took the lead, went up to 16. I think their highest lead was as much as 19. Colorado State cut it back down to 6, but they could never get it past 6. And then Texas ultimately won by 12, playing the free throw game at the end. My takeaways from the game last night against Colorado State. Colorado State scored 44 points and shot 29% from the field and 25% from 3, right? So if you just looked at the box score, you would say, damn, Texas was playing some hellacious defense. And I think they were playing some really good defense, right? But most of it looked like poor shot making, right? Because there were some just open opportunities that Colorado State wasn't making. I think we have to be honest about that. Entire legs, right? This may have been a scheduling loss for Colorado State because they had to play Tuesday night, in Dayton, Ohio. Didn't finish that game to probably 11. No telling when they got on the plane. Then they have to fly to Charlotte, North Carolina and play against Texas. I mean, at least 42 hours, after the end of their game. So, that could just be a scheduling loss for Colorado State. And I think that had a lot to do with the tired legs we saw from them last night and them just not being able to make a shot specifically in the first half. But I do think what was elite about the Texas defense was the fact that they forced 19 turnovers and scored 17 points off those turnovers. So we know that this Texas basketball team can be very inconsistent offensively, and there's times where they struggle to score in the half court, right? They need to create easy opportunities for themselves, and they did that by forcing 19 turnovers and scoring 17 points off those turnovers. The one that sticks out to me is Tyrese Hunter getting that steal and slamming the ball with that one-handed tomahawk dunk. That was a big moment for Texas in this game, and there were a lot of moments like that when you force 19 turnovers. Furthermore, I'm going to take it a step further. Texas turned it over 12 times themselves, and obviously you don't want to turn it over, double-digit times. But if you can hold the other team scoreless off those turnovers, that's elite, right? Texas turned the ball over 12 times, and Colorado State did not score on any of those 12 possessions. So Texas did a really good job of, even when they turned the ball over, not hanging their heads, getting back and defending at a high level, at the highest level you can defend, right? When you allow 0 points off 12 turnovers, that's elite defense, and 17 points off 19 turnovers, that's elite defense as well. I don't think the Longhorns were as bad offensively as they looked, right? I know it was an ugly game. I know, Texas couldn't score at all, right? Dylan Disu looked like he never played basketball before, but I don't think the Longhorns were as bad offensively as they looked. I just don't think they made shots, but I still think they got quality shots, and the shots we're used to seeing them get throughout the course of a game. It had more to do with the volatility of the three-point shot, and once again, Dylan Disu being ice cold from the field. Texas only made 1 3-pointer in this game and went 1 for 14 overall. That's 7%. The one they made was the buzzer beater before halftime. Once again, the 30-foot plus 3 by Max Asmus. Outside of the 3-point shot, however, Texas shot 21 of 41 or 51% from the field, right? So from the 2-point range offensively, they were really efficient. Max Asmus and Dylan Disu took 12 of the 14 threes, and I would say at least 9 of those were quality shots or shots they're used to taking. Almost all of Dylan Disu's shots were quality and ones that he usually makes. So I still think that we got quality shots in the offense. I'm a process over results guy. Obviously, they didn't make them, but if you get those same shots every game, you're going to make them more times than not because they're quality shots. Once again, process over results, right? That's how we should look at things. Outside of Dylan Disu and Max Asmus, the rest of the team scored 32 points on 55% shooting from the field, right? So once again, very efficient. The problem was Max Asmus and Dylan Disu your best players just weren't your best players last night. But the good thing is, survive in advance. You found a way to win, even when Max Abmas and Dylan Disu didn't play like Max Abmas and Dylan Disu. I love Tyrese Hunter's energy last night. 8 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals. And he took a lot of pressure off of Max Abmas in terms of ball handling. He had 2 of the 3 assists that Texas had for the entire night. Right? Loved Kendall Weaver's energy. 2 offensive rebounds, a steal, an and one. And he made some really tough shots yesterday. And of course, he gave you his customary lockdown, in your face, bulldog, junkyard defense, right? And then just great effort all around. I thought Caden Shedrick played some really good defensive minutes and took almost everything away at the rim. And he gave you 5 points in 15 minutes, spelling Dylan Disu as well. So I thought Caden Shedrick, Kendall Weaver, and Tyrese Hunter, as the others, played a really good game outside of Max Abmas and Dylan Disu. Now, what needs to be cleaned up if you want to get to your second consecutive Sweet 16? Texas was out-rebounded in this game, and there aren't many paths to victory if Tennessee gets more opportunities than you. Only 3 assists the entire game. We came into the season, Rodney Terry, saying that the goal is 17 per game, right? 3 assists is horrible, right? Ugly game, but they survived in advance. But ball movement and player movement is what wins in the tournament, especially against a defense like Rick Barnes in Tennessee, when they're going to load up on the strong side, right? So, you're definitely going to have to move the ball. You're going to have to move bodies, right, to get easy opportunities against Tennessee and break down their defense. You can't shoot 7% from 3 in any level of basketball and expect to win. You do that again on Saturday, and you're going to get blown off the court by Tennessee and Rick Barnes. So that's what needs to be cleaned up, but thankfully they have an opportunity to clean it up in the second round, and I think that they will. Now we're setting the stage for tomorrow's matchup. Texas, of course, will face Tennessee in the round of 32 to see who will get to the Sweet 16, to see who will be the real UT, right, into the next time that these teams play in any respective sport. Rick Barnes is the all-time winningest coach at the University of Texas, and Rodney Terry spent over a decade as a part of his staff. Tennessee beat St. Peter's by 34 points last night, led by All-American Dalton Connect, who scored 23 points on 15 shots, and Zakai Ziegler, who had 11 points and 10 assists. Tennessee shot 51% from the field and 46% from 3. So this is a Tennessee team that has a lot of veterans. Texas has played a lot against a lot of these players the last 2 years. We didn't play them this season, but the 2 years prior, we played them in a home and home, and a lot of these players are still on the team. Dalton Connect is a transfer. This is his first year on the team, but he's an All-American 3-level scorer at 6'6", 6'7", can give you 25 points on any given night. And Zakai Ziegler is one of the best floor generals in the country. And then outside of that, they just got really good veteran defensive players who can knock down the 3-point shot. So it's going to be a very tough matchup for the Texas Longhorns. I'm not sure how you guard Zakai Ziegler. Maybe you have to put Tyrese Hunter and Kendall Weaver on him the entire game because he's so explosive. I'm not sure how you guard Dalton Connect. Like I said, a 6'6", 6'7", 3-level scorer. I'm not sure, how many minutes you give Dylan Mitchell on him or who else can guard him, right? If it's Brock Cunningham, I'm not sure Brock Cunningham can stay in front of him. So it's going to be a tough matchup for, Texas and Rodney Terry. But if anybody can figure out a way to stop this Rick Barnes-led team, it's the coach that sat next to him for over a decade and Rodney Terry. So in my bracket, I picked Texas to move on to the Sweet 16, and I think tomorrow they will move on to the Sweet 16 and beat Tennessee in the round of 32. So that's setting the stage. That's what Texas has in front of them tomorrow in the NCAA tournament. But before we get there, we have to start with the women today. As a 1 seed, they play at 2 against Drexel on ESPNU. So make sure we're supporting our women just as much as we're supporting our men in the tournament. And hopefully the Longhorns are cutting down the nets in the men and the women's tournament at the end when it's all said and done. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And of course, we'll continue to cover the men's and women's tournaments until both Texas teams are knocked out or, once again, cutting down the nets at the end when it's all said and done.